As amazing as holidays like Thanksgiving and Christmas are, sometimes they can really suck when you have an eating disorder. Welcome back to my channel. Thanks for clicking on this video. As a disclaimer, we're going to be talking about eating disorders, so if that's triggering, just go ahead and don't watch this video. Also, if you're struggling with an eating disorder, please reach out and get help, whether from a dietitian or a medical professional, a counselor, anyone that you need. You deserve to get help and to recover from your eating disorder. Okay, so I am a little bit of a sucker for the holidays. I've always loved Thanksgiving and Christmas and that whole Christmas season. I love setting up the tree, which I actually just set up my own tree in my own home, which is really, really exciting. I'm really just a sucker for the whole Christmas season. That is until I developed an eating disorder. And now, for years, the holidays weren't fun or exciting. They were anxiety inducing and stressful. I remember one of the hardest times I have ever cried in my life was probably Christmas Eve of 2019. I had purged, it was Christmas Eve, I had purged. My boyfriend at the time, my ex-boyfriend, found out and he was threatening to run upstairs and tell my mom and send me to treatment. And I was on my hands and knees sobbing, crying, begging him not to go tell my mom what I'd done. My life was really falling apart. Not to be a Debbie Downer here though, because I can say that this year, 2021, is the first year in a long time that I'm actually really excited about this holiday season and looking forward to all aspects of it. Even the food, if you can believe it. I'm looking forward to baking cookies and helping my mom make Christmas dinner and Thanksgiving dinner. And I'm actually genuinely looking forward to all of that. Now, that's not to say that there aren't bad days, and that's not to say that I'm fully recovered, because I definitely do have bad days. In fact, I have been vlogging recently, and I'm going to show you a very vulnerable and kind of interesting day for me. So if you're not subscribed to my channel, subscribe so you can see that video. But even though there are still rough days and I still struggle, I am so thankful for where I'm at in my recovery journey, especially as we get to the holidays. I feel like I can finally enjoy it again. Now, I know that this time of year, Thanksgiving and Christmas and the whole Christmas season, can be really hard for a lot of people who struggle with food in any capacity. So I wanted to share my 5 tips that I have for dealing with the holidays. Number 1 is don't restrict. Back when my eating disorder was really bad, every time the holidays would roll around, I would make an extra effort to restrict. I would tell myself that I'm not allowed to eat sugar. I would have really strict exercise rules, all these things so I could somehow control myself around all the Christmas food. And this inevitably failed because I would get hungrier and hungrier until I eventually binged. And then I would feel so bad about binging that I would restrict even harder the next day. And it was just this perpetual cycle of restricting, binging, restricting, binging, occasionally purging. It made every day just so horrible and almost unbearable. And it was almost as if I was fighting constant temptation, because my mom would have bowls of M&Ms out and there would be cookies and all these candies and good food, and I wouldn't let myself have any of it. I was so hungry and I was constantly looking at all these things that I wouldn't let myself have, and my body's natural reaction was to binge because I was so hungry, and also because I was not allowing myself to have these foods, and so I was naturally gravitating towards them. So if you don't take anything else from this video, please take this. Do not restrict. It is not the answer. Don't cut out foods. Don't cut out food groups. Please, 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 please don't restrict. Okay, tip number 2 is eat when you need to eat. This is especially for people who are going to stay with family or friends over the holidays, and those who might not have as much control over their food and when they eat as maybe they did if they lived alone. For example, my family has a very different eating schedule than I do. It's not uncommon at all for them to only eat 2 meals a day and go many, many hours between meals. And I get that that works for some people. It does not work for me. And in fact, it can be very triggering. I've realized that for my health, I need to eat consistently throughout the day. I can't go long periods of time without eating. So now when I go home, I have to make the decision that I might have to eat other meals or other snacks that my family aren't eating. That used to be really hard for me because I used to never be able to eat unless other people were eating. Like I could not be the only person eating. But now I just know that I have to do it. So if my family is gonna go long periods of time without eating, I have to go and either make myself a meal or make myself a snack and eat alone, whether that means I need to take food to my room so I'm more comfortable. I just know that I need to make sure that I'm getting enough food and I'm feeding my body consistently. So if you're in a situation where you're dealing with an eating schedule that you're not used to or you're not comfortable with, plan for that, have snacks available, have food that you can go to if you need to eat when you're hungry, even if the people around you might not be eating. The important thing here really is to not use someone else's eating habits as an excuse to listen to your eating disorder. So I know for me, it's tempting when I go home, my eating disorder voice will just say, oh, well, now we're just gonna be eating 2 meals a day. It's almost an excuse for me to restrict, but do not use someone else's eating schedule as an excuse to listen to your eating disorder. Number 3 is go with the flow and be flexible. Go with the flow and be flexible. It's funny because not that long ago, this would be contrary to every single cell in my body when it came to food. I did not know how to go with the flow. I did not know how to be flexible when it came to food. But over the years, I've just kind of had to accept that I am not always gonna have complete control over what I eat. There are gonna be times that people cook for me, and there are gonna be times that I eat food that other people make, and that's okay. There are gonna be times that I eat earlier than I normally would or later than I normally would, and that's not gonna kill me. Now here's the caveat. I intentionally put this tip after my previous tip because the most important thing is to make sure that you're eating consistently and you're getting enough food. So obviously eat consistently, eat enough food, but in that, give yourself freedom and flexibility to eat those Christmas treats, to eat those Christmas cookies, to go out with friends and family, drink that hot cocoa. I mean, something so simple that I didn't do for years because I was just terrified to do it. Give yourself the freedom and flexibility to do that. If you have to eat a little earlier to eat with your family and friends, or eat, a little bit later to be able to eat with your family and friends, allow yourself to do that. But again, 100% always within the constraint that you need to make sure that you're eating enough and you need to make sure that you're eating consistently. Number 4 is honor your boundaries. This one is not only hard to implement, but it's also kind of hard to talk about because as much as I love my family, there are certain people that I have to have some clear boundaries with. And I think that's the reality for everyone. We all have people in our lives that we need to set boundaries with. And sometimes when you go home for the holidays, it's hard to avoid people that may have hurt you in the past, or maybe people that don't respect your boundaries or who are toxic people. It's really important that you maintain those boundaries and you protect yourself. I could make a whole nother video about this because I think boundaries are so important, but here are just a couple things that I'd say about keeping those boundaries. Make sure that you have an outlet, a friend or someone that you can talk to during this time. If it happens to be a more stressful time, someone that you can text or call or reach out to if you need to talk. Also, try, if at all possible, to have a space that you can retreat to if you need to. Maybe that's your room where you can close your door and just spend some time alone, get away from certain people. I know some people don't have the luxury of having their own room and their own space, so maybe make a plan to go to a coffee shop or go for a walk by yourself. Anything that can give you the distance that you need if you feel like you need it. And lastly, I would say have a conversation with the individuals that you need to have a conversation with. If it's appropriate and safe for you to do so, you are allowed to be clear about your boundaries. You are allowed to tell people, hey, I don't want you to talk about that around me, and hey, I would rather you didn't say this. You are allowed to set boundaries in your life. Also, don't be afraid to stand up for yourself. If someone says something that's unkind or crosses a line, you are allowed to stand up for yourself. I know this is all easier said than done. I think boundaries are especially really hard for me to maintain, and it's gonna be a bit of a struggle when I go home this holiday season, but I know that boundaries are so important when it comes to my own mental health and recovery. So I'm really gonna make an effort to maintain them, and I really encourage you to as well. Last but not least, tip number 5 is consider what will be important in 5 years. Sometimes when I'm really struggling with my eating disorder and behaviors, I find it really helpful to think what's gonna matter in 6 months, in a year, in 5 years. Will I really look back 5 years down the road and think, I really wish I hadn't eaten those molasses cookies back in 2021? No, of course not. I'm not going to think that. I'm going to wish that I spent more time with my friends and family. I'm going to wish that I didn't spend so much time stressing about food, because looking back here in 2021, 5 years ago, I regret all the time that I wasted on my eating disorder, that I wasted stressing about food and trying to limit my caloric intake and over exercising and protein. I regret all of that. But I will never regret enjoying time with my friends and family. I will never regret eating the Christmas food. I won't regret living in the moment and ignoring my eating disorder. If ever you become disheartened, maybe just ask yourself, is this gonna matter in a year or 5 years? And if it's anything your eating disorder is telling you, it's probably not gonna matter. I've already lost way too many moments to my eating disorder, and I am determined that I'm not going to lose any more this holiday season. Now, that's not to say it's gonna be perfect, but I am looking forward to this holiday season, and I hope you are too. I know this can be a really challenging time of year, so again, I'm giving everyone a virtual hug, sending lots of love. I'm wishing you all the best. If you like this content, please subscribe. It really means a lot to me and supports my channel, obviously. And follow me on Instagram at Kristi's_Dave. Happy holidays to each and every one of you. I guess I can say that now. I don't know when it's technically the holiday season, maybe after Thanksgiving, so in a week or 5 days or something, but maybe I'm jumping the gun a little bit. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.